So first off, I want to thank everybody for coming. For those that don't know me, my name is Holly Luke. I'm the Council on Aging Director here for the town of Shrewsbury. So I see some new faces out there, so welcome to the Shrewsbury Senior Center. On behalf of the Shrewsbury Council on Aging and Senior Center, I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you as we gather here today to celebrate March Women's History Month. It is truly an honor to have such an esteemed guest joining us for this special occasion. First and foremost, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to all of you for taking the time to be here with us today. Your presence not only adds significance to this event, but also serves as a testament to the importance of recognizing and celebrating the contributions of women throughout history. Today, we are privileged to have a distinguished lineup of speakers who have graciously accepted our invitation to share their insights and experiences with us. I would like to extend a special welcome to Select Board Chair Beth Casavant, Select Board Vice Chair Teresa Flynn, Select Board Member Michelle Collin, State Representative Hannah Kane, and former Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, Karyn Polito. Your dedication to public service and advocacy for women's rights serve as a beacon of inspiration for us all. As we embark on this journey of reflection and celebration, let us not only honor the achievements of women who have paved the way for progress, but also recommit ourselves to the ongoing pursuit of gender equality and empowerment. Once again, thank you all for being here. Without further ado, let us commence this meaningful event and celebrate the remarkable legacy of women's history. Well, tonight we'll begin with Select Board Chair Beth Casavant.
Hi everyone. It's very nice to be here. I'm Beth Casavant. I'm the chair of the select board. I'm so happy to be a part of this event this evening and also to be able to share the spotlight, I guess, if you would, with some really remarkable women. I have some prepared remarks, but I think I was hoping it would be a little bit more of a conversation. So when I first started thinking about this event and what I wanted to share, I thought about my own path to becoming someone, involved in local government. And for me, I decided when my husband and I both decided, when we had our first child, that I would no longer be in the paid workforce. And somehow having that term homemaker applied to me every time I had to fill out my occupation just didn't sit right with me. That wasn't what I was doing, even though I deeply believe in a woman's choice to decide to stay home and raise a family, even though that sometimes is seen as like an antiquated way of living your life. But I always wanted something for myself too. And that something turned out to be giving back to local government. And one of the reasons I got involved in local government is sitting in the room here with me, and that's Hannah Kane, our state representative, but also my very good friend, who recognized in me an ability to serve and give back to the community and do meaningful work, probably before I recognized it in myself. I have two daughters. One is about to be 21 and the other one is about to be 18. And so I'm sort of at that point in my life now where I'm looking back at the choices that I've made over the last 2 decades and reflecting on that and thinking about where I want to go in the future. And I think that as women, right, we're in this unique place where the kids grow up and you look around and you wonder, okay, what's next? So you're kind of at this really neat juxtaposition in your life. And when I look back, I think of all the things that I've done in town and how a lot of that was really rooted in a desire to make the community a wonderful place for my family. So that's always been at the heart of my involvement in local government. And when I first moved to Shrewsbury 15 years ago and I looked at our select board, there wasn't a whole lot of female representation. And when I decided to run in 2017, I realized that I would be only the 6th person female to serve on the Shrewsbury Select Board if I were to be elected. And I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but one of the women that came before me was Karyn Polito. And I think you also served on a majority female board. So for those of you that might like municipal government history, as I do, when I look back, it was June Tomiolo, and then Donna O'Connor, and Karyn Polito, and Moira Miller, and Lori Hogan, and then myself. And then from there, we were able to, I mean, that was all like, what, 295 or 94 years of Shrewsbury being a town. You know, that's how many times we've had women in the highest elected office in the community. And then I was really excited while I've been on the board that we welcomed 2 additional female, what is now called select board members. And so I see that having women at the table, right, always enriches the conversation. And something that I learned from Hannah is that you'll never go wrong if you surround yourself with smart females. And that has always been something that I try to do. So when someone says to me, there's a vacancy on such and such a board, right, I always want to think to myself, is there someone who I might be able to encourage to think a little bit differently about their ability to serve in a role? Imposter syndrome is totally a real thing, right? I think back to that term, homemaker, right? Does that define me? Is that really who I am? And I think that yes, it's a part of who I am, but it doesn't mean that I can't also be other things, right? So I can also be a leader in the community and someone who can hold elected office in the community. And I think that that's a really great example for not only my own daughters, but for other people's daughters as well. And you know, my kids bring their friends home and they say to me, what does a select board member do? Because I mean, they have to go in and out of this one door in my garage where I put my magnetic campaign signs. And so, you know, I like that they will occasionally ask, well, what does a select board member do? And so we get to have those conversations, and now that they're turning 18, I also make sure that they go and register to vote, and how important that being involved in your community really is. And so local government is something that I'm really passionate about, and I think that it's something that's accessible to everyone, especially in this community where we have a form of government where it's, you know, elected representative town meeting, and that gives 244 regular people a voice in the legislative body of our community. And I think that's a really powerful thing. You know, people are always watching, young people are always watching, I think my peers are watching to sort of see, you know, how I move about in the world and what I value in the community and what are the sort of things that I'm willing to, you know, take a stand on and be vocal about. And it's always, to me, at the heart of it is it the best thing for the community overall? You know, will it benefit the majority of the residents? And then, you know, when I go home at night, is it something that's, you know, I'm going to be proud of at the end? And those are the kind of principles that guide me when I'm, you know, making decisions, and what I think is so fulfilling about being a part of local government and being a leader in the community. I want to make sure that I allow time for my fellow select board members to speak, but I do want to share a proud story. So my husband likes to vote by mail just because he's never sure if he'll make it to the polls. So we were working on his state primary ballot, and I always will show my daughter, she's gonna be 21, but it's always good to go through a ballot first and be like, okay, you should watch his dad vote. And we finished with the ballot, and she said, when can I run for town meeting? And I just stopped, and I was like, well, you're plenty old enough to run for town meeting. I didn't think that was something you were interested in. And she said, well, I hear you talk so much about everything that's going on in town. I feel like I'm really well informed, and I'd like to participate in town meeting. And to me, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Somebody who's really close to me sees value in the work that's being done and wants to be a part of local government, and that's the next generation. And so I count that as a success, and it's part of my why I do things, and why I take the time to participate in local government. And it's also the people, right? So being able to do events like this and have those connections, to walk into this room tonight and see familiar faces and people that smile and how are you and how are things going, and there's a really nice connection to be had when you get into local government for the right reasons, and do the best that you can to make sure that everybody's day-to-day life is just a little bit better. So I do want to allow some time for my colleagues on the select board. I guess we'll start with the select board vice chair, Teresa Flynn, to come on up and take the microphone from me.
I'll be the second, probably not the last person to say I'm here because of Hannah Kane. And I just want to say that I'm just really always impressed and grateful for everything that Beth does for this community. And so I thought I'd just start with a little bit about me, because I'm guessing a lot of you in the room don't really know much about me. So a little bit about my path to the select board, which is very different. Honestly, something you'll never hear me talk about was my passion for municipal government that got me here. So I've lived in Shrewsbury for 20 years. I have 3 daughters. They're a sophomore, junior, and senior at the high school. And I work full time. So as you can imagine, most of my sort of mid-adult life was very busy. I served on the personnel board for the town for about 9 years, but that was a very light lift. So I was turning 50, and I was having that sort of, what have I done? You know, I guess I have a job and I'm raising my kids, but what will my obituary say? You know, like, she worked hard, you know. So I went through this exercise with an executive coach and really kind of ended up with, I wanted something that had a higher purpose and was aligned with my value system, but I really wanted to give back. And so I was going down the path of aligning with a charity, you know, volunteering. I wanted to do something beyond, you know, just making financial contributions. And then Hannah came. So there was an open seat on the select board. And honestly, to know me, if you had known me 4 years ago and you had said, would you ever serve as an elected official in Shrewsbury, I would have been absolutely not. Like, it was not even on my radar. But as I really started digging in, I was like, this is so perfectly aligned with this exercise that I was going through. It was an opportunity to leverage what I felt was a skill set that I thought the town could benefit from. But our form of local government is so unique in that we really are dependent upon community members, whether it's an elected official, whether it's volunteers on committees, boards. You know, I just said I have 3 daughters that are in high school, so parents that volunteer on PTOs or events. So I was really looking at this as another example for my daughters and her friends as well of what you can do to give back in that capacity. So I would say that this was something that Hannah and Beth and certainly Karyn love your pants, by the way. And now Michelle, really looking at, you know, I know the theme of this is sort of, I wrote it down, inspire, you know, empower, etc. I really am here because they've set a great example, and I really do work to hold my place with them and continue to serve, you know, the great people in this community. So I think it is something that, I don't want to say I want to leave it better than I came to it, but I think I want to help others, other women especially in this community, to see that there are great opportunities for leadership and that there are great people who will appreciate their contribution. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Collin. I am also a member of the Shrewsbury Select Board. I am, in 297 years of the existence of the town of Shrewsbury, I'm the 8th woman ever elected to this position. In almost 300 years, I'm number 8. And there right now are 4 of us in this room that have sat in this seat. And I think that's pretty remarkable, you know, that in all of that history, there's been less than 10 of us in this position. I also am the last person that was ever sworn in as a select man in the town of Shrewsbury. About 3 weeks after I was elected, at town meeting, we changed the name from the Board of Select Men to the Select Board. When I was campaigning, I have 3 little boys that are 7, 9, and 11. So they're really young, and I have a friend who asked for me to put a sign on her lawn, and she called me the next day and she said, you know, my daughter asked me why your sign says select man, because you're a woman. And It's like, that's a really great question. That is a really great question, and it's really important. Words matter and inclusion matters, and I think it's a really important step that we took a few weeks after I was elected, to change, make sure that I'm the last person that'll ever be sworn in as a select man in town. We talk a lot about why we do what we do, and again, have Hannah to thank for that. There were some phone calls and coffees that were had. I never in a million years imagined I would ever do anything like this. This is so far outside of my comfort zone. I don't know if my cheeks are turning red, but I never imagined getting involved in politics. I've always been somebody that, felt it was really important to just, when work needs to be done, you step up and do the work. I don't expect anybody to step in and fix something that needs to be fixed if I'm not willing to fix it as well. So, when my kids were little and getting involved in schools, we needed to build a new school in town. We needed, funding for our schools, and these are things that I was really passionate about. And I didn't feel like I could just wait for somebody to fix it, and that I had to get out there and help, make these things happen if I thought they were important. So, it was always work behind the scenes, and it took the better part of a year for multiple people in the community to convince me to run for this position, because it is so far outside of my comfort zone. I always wanted to just be in the background doing the work. I will support the people that I'll get up and stand and talk into a microphone, and won't break out in hives and get really nervous. But I thought about it, and I thought about what my 3 little boys will see. And I wanted them to be able to see that women belong in these positions. We belong in positions of power and authority and decision making, and places that are really important, and that they should not ever be afraid to see themselves in that position, but to see women in those positions, for this to be normal for them. One of my favorite things to do as a select board member is to talk to kids about what we do. And there's all questions like, what exactly do you do? I think a lot of adults aren't sure about that answer as well. But I love talking to kids about it, especially girls. And I am involved, I have 3 little boys. My oldest son is involved in the BSA Scout troop. I'm involved in his troop, and I'm also involved in the girls troop as well. And a few months ago, Miss Jones was there. A few months ago, I talked to those girls about what we do and why local government matters and why it's so important. And we talk about all the things that we can do to help people and impact people's lives and work on our community and make things better. And one of the girls asked me, isn't it scary? Isn't it scary getting up and being on TV and talking to a room full of people? And I said, it's terrifying. I'm terrified. I'm very nervous right now. And I was nervous when I was talking to those girls. It was a group of these wonderful kids. And I said, yeah, it's terrifying. I've always been really nervous about this, but it's really important, the work that we can do and the difference that we can make in people's lives is so much more important than our fear. And it's important to always remember that our fear is less important than the impact that we can make. And that we need to accept that fear, and we also need to accept the power that we have to change our community and to change our world. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. But thank you all for having us. This is wonderful. We're so lucky to live in this community and to be part of all of this. So thank you. All right. We'll introduce Hannah Kane, our state representative, is next. Thank you.
No woman in town will ever answer the phone when I call again. But it's so great to be here with you this afternoon. And Holly, I want to thank you. She went in the room more. Oh, there you are. I really think it's great that you are putting on this program today. I think it is recent history for Shrewsbury to have women serving on a select board now. But I have always felt, since I moved here 27 years ago now, that Shrewsbury's been really supportive of women's leadership And women's leadership happens in a number of different ways. Karyn and I were joking a few minutes ago about one of the reasons there haven't been that many women is because there were some really long-serving men on the select board. So you don't have opportunities for turnover. But I have seen across this community residents really supportive and encouraging of women's leadership. Jim and I moved here because we found in Shrewsbury a community where we could see ourselves having our family and being part of the fabric of the community, devoting time to public service, and hopefully retiring here. And I was working full-time when we first moved here. We didn't have any children yet. And it was when my second daughter was born that I decided I wanted to step out of what was a very aggressive work schedule. I was on a plane many mornings out of Logan to go visit clients around the country. And then I wanted to stay at home with my kids, and I wanted to have time to be invested in the community and to give back the same way that my grandparents had and the same way that my parents had. And I looked around and I thought, okay, you know, I have a business degree, but I've also worked in the public sector. And so what can I do here? Where is there an opening for somebody with my skill sets and interest, and where is there a need? And so the Shrewsbury Development Corporation, legislation that Karyn had just gotten passed into law, creating the SDC that would take over the Allen Farm property. They were looking for members to serve on it. And I thought, you know what, I could do that. I worked in the Salucci Weld administration on economic development. I'm like, that's a passion of mine, I can do that. And immediately became very involved in that aspect of town. And then once my children reached the age of going to school, I got involved in the schools because they needed help. They needed PTO members. They needed money raised. And I thought, I can do these things. And I started to build a network of women. And in 2009, when the question was, what are we going to do with a Sherwood Middle School, came. And Ted Collin, a dear friend, said, you know, we're going to need your help on this. I said, okay, I can do this. I said, but I'm going to do it different than has been done in the past. Because I think in the past, questions before our town had been sort of, let's divide people into sort of you're with us or against us category when we're talking about schools. And I thought that's really not what this issue is. We have to make a decision as a community about what financial investment we want to make. Do we want to put $21 million and get 5 or 6 more years out of Old Sherwood? Or do we want to invest $26 million and get a 50 to 75 year investment? When you talk to people about the choice like that, it becomes pretty clear to any homeowner which choice you'd make, let alone as a community member making. And I also wanted to illustrate to the community at the time that there's a different path to talk about, you know, questions before us. And in doing that, I needed other people to help, though. I partnered with Erin Canzana, who was on the school committee at the time. And at one of the very first operational meetings we had to think about how we're going to do this, in came new resident Beth Casavant. And as she said, I really immediately recognized in her someone who was very smart and really wanted to give back to the community in the same way that I did. And so we worked together on several different initiatives before Shrewsbury voters over the next couple of years. And I was very proud of the fact that the initiatives that we worked on had a different tone and tenor, and that they were information-based, they were respectful dialogues, and in the end, voters made the decisions that they made, which was to, by and large, support what we were up to. And as part of that process, I got to know Karyn Polito very well. And Karyn is somebody who had served for 10 years as state rep. But she was also somebody who, like me, had had mentors in her life, which weren't just women. Actually, some of my best mentors have been men. One that we had in common was Lieutenant Governor Paul Salucci. He was somebody who really showed me the model for always being on the lookout for talented people that you can help advance in their careers. And it was him who had initially said to me, you know, are you going to think about running for office someday? And my answer at the time was, yes, I've seen public service. I served in the State House in Maine when I was young as a page, running around delivering notes to legislators. I've seen the process. I want to be part of it someday, but I'm not sure when. It needs to fit in the arc of my career and my family life. And so Karyn inspired me when she ran, not only for state rep, but when she ran for treasurer in 2010. You might not remember, but in that year, she was the highest Republican vote getter in Massachusetts. She raised a ton of money, and she worked harder than anyone else I've ever seen work. And I respected Karyn long before she ran for treasurer, but after she ran for treasurer, I respected her work ethic in terms of setting your goal for something and going about and trying to do it. And even though she didn't win that race, that set her up for the 2014 race with Charlie Baker to run for governor, because she had name recognition all across the state. People recognized how incredibly smart and talented she was. And in 2013, when Charlie Baker was thinking about getting in the race, I sat down and talked to him. And I said, I think it's great you're gonna run. I had had the ability to work with Charlie in the Welch Lucci administration. I knew he was a great, smart guy. I thought he was totally who should be governor. But I said to Charlie, but there's only one person that you should be running with as your lieutenant governor, and that's Karyn. And then the next day, Matt Beaton and I went to Karyn and said, do you have a few minutes for coffee? And we said to her, look, you've been incredible in our community. As state rep, she started a golf tournament, a charity golf tournament. She ran it for 10 years. It raised $200,000. Matt Beaton then continued it for 3 years and added to it, and I've been fortunate to continue it along with Beth Casavant's help. And in the 23 years now that this charity golf tournament Karyn started, we've raised over $800,000 for SYFS, St. Anne's Human Services, and Westboro Food Pantry. And that, to me, is really what leadership in one of these positions is. It's not just about the work at the State House and advocating for the town, but it's about what you do in the community that you live in and that you serve, and how do you show up for that. And so, I felt very passionately that Karyn should be running for lieutenant governor, and said, I'm all in. Because I believe it's both identifying women that you think are really skilled and talented and who should be looking at how they can serve a community, but it's also being an all-in on other women who already are working to advance themselves in a career, but you believe in public service, but you believe in them. And again, I say this as someone who, I'm not suggesting you should always vote for a woman because a woman is running. I will always be the first to tell you to vote whoever is the best candidate, regardless of gender and, quite frankly, regardless of party, who's running for office. But as someone said earlier, you have to ask a woman to think about running for office 7 times before she'll even remotely consider that she's talented or qualified or has the experience to run. Guess how many times you have to ask a man? 0. Not even once. They self-identify that of course they have the experience and talent to run and win. And so I always talk about sort of this push-pull with women. It's our job to help identify and push, and it's also, the pulling mechanism that we also have to be in the room to advance things when they're happening. One of the things that I do right now is I serve as the House co-chair of the Women's Caucus in the legislature. And Massachusetts, as you know, is a supermajority Democrat state. I am one of 4 Republican women in the legislature. There were 5 elected Republicans until Karyn and Charlie were no longer in office. And so it is really important for me to feel like I am showing up and representing. But in the Women's Caucus, you get elected chair by the women. And there are 58 Democratic women, and as I said, there are 4 of us who are Republican. And yet in Massachusetts, we have a very collegial and bipartisan approach to things. And so even though I'm a Republican, my colleagues elected me to be the House chair this session. And I think that really speaks volumes to women. I think that speaks volumes to the way that women approach opportunities to lead. In fact, there are studies about that, on how women legislators, women elected, are more collegial and collaborative, and they really put forward what is the need of who I'm serving and how do I best do that. So I have felt really honored to be in this position, and I've been very inspired. I appreciate Beth and Teresa and Michelle's comments, but I'm really inspired every day by women in Shrewsbury who jump in and say, how can I help? What is needed? It is really something that I take great pride in. I think our community is very special. I'm sure there's other wonderful communities and people invested out there, but I think Shrewsbury in particular has been a community that has supported the efforts that we've undertaken along the way. I will also share in terms of numbers that in the 300 years of the Massachusetts legislature, there's been well over 20,000 men who have been elected and served. When I was elected, I was the 192nd woman to be elected. Roberta Goldman, who served in the 80s for a term for Shrewsbury, was number 73. And I believe you were 142, Karen, in yours. And actually, I have research being done now to see if we are the community that's had the highest number of women elected to serve it, because I think we are, or at least we're tied if we're not winning. But when you think about that, again, 234 women over 300 years. And so there's a responsibility on us as women to be making sure that we're in the room, that we show up, that we acknowledge that we're not just there representing us, but really people are looking to see how it is that we lead when we have a chance so that others are going to have an opportunity behind us. So with that, again, thank you, Holly, and I'm going to turn it over to a woman who is a very good friend, but also somebody who I have found deeply inspiring in her service to the Commonwealth. Karyn.
Thank you, Hannah. Hello, everyone. It is great to be back in this room. And I just want to say, first of all, to Holly, thank you for everything you do every day to make this an amazing experience for the seniors in our community and their families. So give Holly a big and for the board that you serve with, as well as the many individuals who come here every day to make the buses run, to make the meals, to get them to the homes and spend time with people that can't physically get here. You bring this experience to them. So just amazing work. So I'm going to get a quick story about this space, because when I was sitting here listening to these wonderful stories about how Beth and Teresa and Michelle came into service, I started to think about how I came into service back in 1995. And it was, this building wasn't a thing. And it was one of the most pressing issues of the day was whether or not Shrewsbury should have a freestanding senior center, because the senior facility was embedded in the North Shore School where the seniors came for some experiences. So I remember Tom Rooney, Jack Manzi, and there are others that really kind of got everyone really excited about Shrewsbury should have a place just like kids in schools, to be able to come to and be enriched and to age successfully and happily here in Shrewsbury. So it's great to be back here and to see it used and attended so well. So to Hannah Kane, thank you for having a lot of coffee with a lot of people multiple times. Obviously, she's got a really good way with making sure people don't say no. And say yes. And I was very grateful when Matt and Hannah planted a seed in my mind in terms of getting back into public service, and I'm grateful for that. I want to give Jean Campanello a big shout out, because when I was running back in 1995, I remember Jean being on the Shrewsbury School Committee and a town meeting member. I just thought she was so cool. And she still is, and she's still active in this community. But these were experiences early on in my life that I had from people who were doing the doing and really enjoying the experience. And it's made our community a very, very good and special place to live, to age, and to raise a family. So thank you all. So let me just explain like why I got involved. I'm going to give you sort of an answer as to how I had the opportunity to serve in so many ways in this great Commonwealth. And then I'm going to close it out with the story of a woman who is known in this community, and being Women's History Month, deserves to be part of this gathering today. So I got involved because I felt like it was my responsibility. You know, I grew up in a family of people who served this great town of Shrewsbury. My grandfather, Bob Lutz, served as one of the original Rolling Stones. There were 4 original town meeting members who got town meetings started. And so I had the great fortune of growing up and having these dinner conversations with Grandpa Lutz around like how things worked. I was just super curious. And if you're someone listening at home or thinking, you know, how can I get involved in the town of Shrewsbury? Just be curious. How do things work? And a lot of people aren't curious because they just assume that the buses are going to roll on time, that the police and fire are going to be there, that the older citizens in the town will be cared for, and that your kids are going to get a great education, that the cable's going to work, and your internet's going to work. They just assume that that all happens. It's like magic, right? It isn't. It's a service that is provided by very dedicated, talented, and people who choose to do this work, and then a whole army of volunteers who serve on these boards, including the select board and the school committee, and bring such talent to match the salaried employees of the town to do these things. So I grew up with this amazing curiosity, like how things work, so that when I got out of law school and decided to come back here to start my career, I said, it's my responsibility to get involved. And I did one simple thing. I literally went up to town hall. I asked Mr. Carney, who was our town manager, if there were any opportunities on a board, that I had some time and I was ready to give back in whatever way he saw fit. He said, okay, Karyn, it's very nice to see you, and leave your number here and we'll get back to you when there is something available. That one interaction led to literally a lifetime of service for me. And so for those that are listening, like, how do you even get started if you don't know Hannah Kane to ask you to get involved on a board or any of these elected officials? Just go up to town hall, visit Kevin Mizikar, write him a note and say, I have some experiences, but more so, I have time and some talent, and I feel a responsibility to give back in whatever way you see my talent helping this community. So everyone can get involved. And so he said, a few weeks later, there's an opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals. We think this would be a fine place for you to get started. And I couldn't wait. And I didn't know anything about zoning, and I felt like this would be really interesting to just do it. But what happened to me was that I was able to be on a board with people I didn't really know. I was the younger one on the board, but I was learning and discovering and working with people that I didn't know and got to know. Then I started to see how the public came forward to a meeting. Some were happy and some were very unhappy, and how you had to work through these experiences to try to resolve the problem of the day and get to a good outcome, a good decision, knowing that you're not going to make everybody happy, but you're going to work hard to get the facts and come up with a good outcome with the best information that you have. And so that led on to more opportunities for me, because then I said, I want to do more of this public service. This is really interesting. And there was an opportunity to then run for public office, and that was a seat on the Board of Select at the time then. And now, this was 1995. I was engaged to be married to my wonderful husband, and I said this would be really great to also run for select woman at the time. And my wedding day was June 24th, and the election was May 1st. So we spent a lot of time, on sign holding and putting signs out and knocking on doors. And my husband, Steve Odelakis, the rock star he is today, was the rock star then that knocked on, I believe, even more doors than me in this town of Shrewsbury. And so we were able to become elected. I was the highest vote getter at that time, and there were 2 openings and 3 people running. And that opened up the opportunity to serve, and that's all I ever wanted to do. Started my law career, started my marriage to this wonderful man, living in my hometown community and serving a town in an elected role that was good to me. And so I then went on to do more, as Hannah noted, becoming elected to the House of Representatives for 10 years because Paul Salucci thought that would be a good idea, and I ultimately did that. And then when I ran for the statewide seat and I lost, I learned that losing isn't failure, it's an experience. But I was more afraid of not trying something that I really wanted and living with regret than doing it and falling short. Because I think that experience in life, like I wish I did this, I could have done that, but I didn't. Those kinds of feelings are ones that hold you back. And I was grateful that I had the opportunity to run, have that statewide experience, and then be sort of eligible to run again with Charlie Baker, an incredible partner in public serving, and have had this extraordinary experience to serve our great Commonwealth in great times, in the hardest of times. And the one story I just want to kind of bring back full circle here is that what I learned in Shrewsbury from people like Dick Carney and Dan Regato and my colleagues on these boards is what helped me be the best lieutenant governor I could be, being the 4th out of 72 as a woman, just to make a note there. Being the best lieutenant governor I could be, I learned here in this town. And it was such an extraordinary experience for me to take the best practices and strategies and working through problem solving and getting stuff done and leveraging state resources and private resources to unlock potential in rural Massachusetts, suburban, and in gateway cities, and having had a visit and been able to work with every single community, 351 cities and towns, was the honor of a lifetime. And so that honor and that opportunity started here. So for those that are thinking, maybe there's someone that says, wow, if I just say yes, and I just put myself in a place that I'm not exactly comfortable, look what you can learn and look what you can do to help others and help your community. So, wonderful experience for me, and I'm grateful to my hometown for that. And I'm also grateful to my partner in life, because without Steve, my husband, I would never have had these opportunities to serve on the select board, to serve in the legislature, and to serve in a statewide role, and to run and lose public office. Because doing all of those things and becoming a mother to Bobby and Judy was daunting. And I will tell you, I was scared to death when I was elected to the House of Representatives in the year 2000, because that was around the time that Jane Swift was the acting governor and gave birth to twins, and how unkind and difficult it was for her to balance her responsibilities as the governor of this Commonwealth and motherhood. And so I knew that my clock was ticking fast, and I was able to start my family later, and at the age of 36 and 38 was blessed with these 2 beautiful children, but I was afraid that I was going to miss a vote. And fortunately, I was able to give birth to my children in August. And I call them my recess babies because the legislature doesn't convene in August, so I never missed a vote. So I'm just explain to you how difficult it can be to do all these things, balance career and motherhood and service, but it can be done. It can be done because you have the will to do it, you have the partner to do it, and you have the support to do it. And so that's how I was able to do it. The person I want to just close out this wonderful sharing this afternoon about is a woman known to all of you, and that is Olive Brigatti. Now, Olive Brigatti was a woman, obviously businesswoman, partner to her husband, Anthony Brigatti, when they started the store, Spags, on Route 9, and it's a fitting tribute that Whole Foods does still have the signage and to give tribute to the legacy that he and Olive left to this community, being so generous and having such a lasting impact. But Olive Brigatti was the businesswoman. She was the financial genius. She was the one that kept the books and added and subtracted the pennies to make that organization grow and thrive to what we knew it to become. Spag was the marketer, he was the fabulous retailer, he was extraordinary, doing what he was doing then way before it became real to others across this country and around the world. And it was Olive that knew when she was doing this with her husband that she needed to balance running this business and becoming a mother. And so she said, I can't do it from Route 9. I have to move the office to the home. And she put the office literally on the front part of the home so that she could go to work every day in her home, run this business, and raise 3 beautiful daughters, Sandy, Carol, and Jeannie. And talk about being a woman so ahead of her time. It didn't delay her. She didn't remove herself from her career. She did it all. And she did it with a lot of support. And she was very successful at it. And at the same time, she served on the library board of trustees. She was the head of Quota Club, and she graduated from Worcester State College. She was a math and Latin, star in college. Super smart woman. So smart, she wanted to not just settle there, she became a pilot. And the reason she wanted to become a pilot is because she said, we're wasting time going to all these trade shows to drum up business for Spags. We need to be more efficient. If I can get my pilot's license, we can get a plane and we can fly to these conferences and get back and have good family time and run the business. So I share that story because she was a pioneering woman making decisions at a time when women weren't making those choices, but they're the same kinds of choices and challenges that exist today for women like you see that share their stories, women listening at home, women trying to balance it all. And the one word I would leave with this today is don't live with regret, find the way to say yes, and know that there are people and resources around you. If you feel right here, you've got to go do something, then tap into it and go do it. So just thank you all, and we appreciate the time. Do the questions and answers, and to my colleagues who are here.
It's actually not a question, it's a comment. No, I don't need that. I got a big mouth. Karen came to my door when I was a homemaker and knocked on that door, and I was very interested at the time. I was in my 30s and I had a 1 and a 5-year-old. And she came and I thought, oh my God, like, look at that girl. She's so young and that could be me, and why aren't I whatever. But I just was so impressed. And then 13 years later, my little 15-year-old was one of the girls you took to vote for the very first time. You hired a limousine and you invited about, I don't even remember, 5 or 6 kids. And my daughter got to be one of those kids that you took to vote for the first time when she turned 18. So I say thank you.
Thank you. I love that story. Those are fun times. But I'm blessed. Told you about my grandfather. My parents served. My brother and I have served. And we have a 4th generation also serving as a town meeting member and a member of the finance committee in Shrewsbury. So we've been blessed to have the opportunity to serve in this community. And I hope that you feel inspired today from all of the people here in this room to know that there's always a need for you to do more and to give back. So thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to share a fun story or have a question for members of the board? This is not about the warrant articles for town meeting.
I actually have a fun story.
Sure.
Which was actually just inspired by all the great speakers today. Actually, Hannah Kane was on the interview committee when I got my job here. Just celebrated 4 years here with the town of Shrewsbury. And to be honest, I couldn't be delighted. I'm in the position that I was meant to be. And it didn't come without, me having to give up a lot of who I was so I could have my family. I have 3 boys myself. And, I needed that extra chance, just somebody to take a chance on me, that I knew what I was doing, that I knew I had passion for this position. And just listening to all of you people talk today, and meeting everybody that comes into the senior center, you teach me every single day, so I very much appreciate that. Again, I thank all of the speakers that took time out of your days today. It means the world to me, it means the world to all of us. And I would like to give an applause to everybody that's in here.